Hey loves, welcome back to TigeraGitana. My name is Abby and today we are going to do a video that I said I was going to do a while back, and that is tips for people who have been adopted, adoptees, spiritual tips specifically on their journey, their healing, their growth, and what they can do within the spiritual community to help them throughout life and throughout their healing work, because a lot of the time they tend to go through more in regards to family within life, and the connection to family, the connection to love, the connection to self-love as well. So these are like 5 tips that I put together for those who are adopted, or even parents who have adopted children, to better help them with their spiritual journey as they grow, to better support them on a spiritual level. So I hope that y'all enjoy this. So this is going to be part of a little bit of the Ancestor work series that I have going on, because the first tip from the get-go is Ancestor work. And the reason why Ancestor work is one of the most important things as far as being adopted that you need to focus on, especially if you have adopted a child, is because you have to look at the family component. And a lot of the time when you have been adopted, you feel a disconnect between your family. Therefore, there's almost a disconnect felt with your ancestors as well. And it almost feels like there's a neglect there within that person and within the ancestors themselves, because the family dynamic itself has been kind of broken apart. So there, it feels a little bit all over the place. It doesn't feel grounding either. And so ancestor work is something that is important to do if you have been adopted, or if you are a parent that has adopted a child. Now, when I did my healing generational trauma video, I did talk about some tips on how adoptees can heal generational trauma within that video. And more often than not, adoptees have to do more work on a spiritual level with their healing process, because there's just right off the bat, especially if from the get-go, there's so many things that like people who are adopted feel: neglect, lack of love, a lack of nourishment. The divine feminine energy is off balance a lot of the time, and also the divine masculine, because it's not grounded in anything. So there's like these imbalances that need to get addressed within that dynamic, and it can get hard to get addressed when there's so many things while you're growing up as a kid. It just feels like all over the place, like you're not grounded necessarily. Then somebody comes in and puts you in this space, and it's not always it's just when a kid gets adopted, it's not always like that, you know, American dream family life type of thing either. It can be really bad, and you have those parents who like foster, and then they'll have a bunch of kids that they just use for money, and that trauma itself gets passed down to that adopted kid, because they don't feel like that family love. They just don't get that nourishment, and so it can be very hard. Now, connecting to your ancestors when you are adopted has to do a lot. It's a lot of it has to do with putting in the work. You do have to put in the work. You do have to meditate. You do have to call them in. You do have to ask for them to be in the space with you. You have to welcome them into your space. You have to be open and hold space for them, so you can build that relationship with them. Granted, a lot of the time when you have like the relationship you're gonna have with your ancestors at first might seem a little bit on like a little bit of friction, because if you didn't know your grandparents or your great grandparents before they passed, your relationship with them, you're just kind of talking to someone that you haven't met in the physical realm, but you now have to build this relationship with. So it might seem a little bit, it might have its up and down and challenges, especially in whatever views they have of what you should be doing or what they would like for you, how they want to assist you, stuff like that. So it is important to really build a one-on-one relationship. You have to see it like as a friendship, as a family dynamic, when it comes to the ancestors. So when you're calling them down and doing that ancestor work, that healing work, you really have to see it as, okay, I'm healing certain aspects of my family life. Now there is a second aspect to adoptees, which is the adopted person's, like the adopters' ancestors as well. Because when you do get adopted, that legal contract is very much valid in the spiritual world. It's almost like when you're married into a different family, you can work with your family line of your partners as well. That dynamic and that union is very important. So it's the same when it comes to adoptees and adopters. You do adopt that family generational, those ancestors from that line as well. So it is important to, if you would like to, you do not have to, but if you would like to, you can also connect with them as your spiritual guides, as your ancestors, in the same way, holding space, building a relationship with them, setting the intention on holding space for them to say, hey, listen, I know we don't know each other, but we are family now to this extent, and I really would like to communicate with you. I would really like to understand. I would really like guidance, and then doing ancestor work to heal them as well, because if there is some aspects, especially in your bloodline, family line, as far as healing with the disconnection of the family, that's some work that you need to do and intentions that you need to set as far as having a strong foundation with your bloodline, but also with your adopters line. If you would like to, once again, I cannot overstate this enough, if you would like to, if you don't want to work with them, you don't have to, but it's just more family that you're basically taking in, more ancestors that you're taking in, more guides that you're taking in. So it's really up to you. Regardless, it's going to be a lot of healing work with the ancestor part. So you have to understand that when you're working with them and healing certain things and asking them like, hey, why did this happen? Because that's one of the things that you can work with them as well. With like, where did the disconnect between the family start? And this is when you want to start asking questions and building that relationship with the ancestors. Like, why is this disconnected? What was my previous family like? Why did this happen like this? Why was I put in this place? And it gives you a little bit more of a foundation and grounding within that work. I also recommend doing a lot of crystal healing for ancestor work, and just holding that ancestor conference and going down the line through your ancestors, picking certain topics that you want to address within your family line, certain like, for example, like love, self-love, doubt, where is that rooted from? Why does this run in my family? Why is this? And you want to pick that, address that through your meditations, through your communications with your ancestors, and then heal that as well, so you can build a very strong foundation with your ancestors. The next one, which I already kind of mentioned, is to meditate. You do need to meditate. This is a tip that is for everybody else with their ancestors as well, but you do need to meditate in order to connect with them. You do need to hold space. You need to do a lot of root chakra focused meditation, which is another one of the tips, but we're going to cover that in a minute. But you do need to hold space. You need to make sure that you are allowing yourself to stay grounded, because a lot of the ancestor connection, ancestor healing work that needs to be done is really in the root chakra. So it has to do with meditation, holding space for your energy, holding space for them, asking them to be in that space with you, calling them forward, asking them for guidance, asking them what they need as well, asking them what they would like as an offering, asking, like, you can start that communication, that line of communication with your ancestors through meditation, which is one of the best ways, whether or not you've been adopted, to connect to your ancestors. The next one, let's just talk about root chakra healing so we can get it out of the way. The reason why your root chakra is important for adoptees and for anybody else who's, was not adopted, is because your root chakra directly connects you to your ancestors. Having an unbalanced root chakra directly kind of points at different generational things that have been passed down through your family line. So you want to make sure that is addressed. And in order for you to have a healthy root chakra, your family perspective and that generational, like the bloodline does have to have some sort of healthy foundation for you to feel like, okay, I'm grounded, I'm stable, I know who I am, I know where I come from, I don't feel lost, I don't feel like I don't have that love or family base from my family. No, I got them, they're backing me, I did the work, I'm connecting with them, I meditate, I pray to them, I ask for protection from them, I make sure I give them offerings, I make sure I give them strength and protection as well. Like, just we keep each other flowing. Like, it's just making sure that your root chakra is stable and grounded. And a lot of the time when there is instability, if you've been adopted, it's because you don't feel grounded in anything. Especially if you've gone from foster home to foster home, you might not feel like you're grounded because you're all, it's a little bit all over the place. Life has put you in a state of limbo. Like, you don't know where you're gonna land, you don't feel comfortable, and your ancestors and doing that ancestor work really helps to keep you a little more grounded, and also bring you that like safety, that family, that protection, where you feel protected, you feel safe, you don't feel like, even like if you don't have, like, let's say you're older now and you're, I don't know, in your 30s, but you were not an adoptee and you're doing ancestor work now, it's like you still feel like you have your family base, it's just in a different way. So root chakra healing is just about maintaining your groundedness and making sure that in the physical realm, you still feel that connection to your ancestors, you still feel safe, protected, and it's really grounding that divine masculine energy within that physical realm. So it's really important to do for adoptees. The next one that I put is to trust yourself. And I say this specific message came today while I was thinking about this video and making this video, and I was taking a shower and I was like, okay, list of things for adoptees, and one of the first things that came to my head was trust yourself with the messages that you receive from your ancestors. And this is specifically when they start revealing themselves to you. One of the things that when you get into ancestor work that happens quite often is that they will start kind of revealing themselves to you. They'll start telling you more about them. They'll start telling you their name, what happened, what country they're from, where they what they love, things that they love to eat, offerings they like, things like that. Like, they'll start revealing themselves to you, and you need to trust yourself. You need to make sure you're not thinking you're making shit up. You need to make sure that you're not like, oh my god, I'm just trying to have this. No, don't. If you are meditating, you're like, hey, I would like to connect to the ancestor that like, I don't know, for some reason maybe you love a specific thing. I don't know, it could be a fruit, it could be like a dessert or something. I'm like, hey, where do I get my love from this from? Where do I get my love for art or music or whatever? And that ancestor says, oh, I really passionate about this, and something that I taught my kids before in this time period in this country, and this is what I loved at this time. And they'll tell you their name. You don't want, if somebody tells you, oh well, my name was Samuel or something like that, and I used to live in this country, if you're getting that message from your ancestors, trust yourself. Don't think that you're just trying to make shit up, because that's not, when you're holding spiritual space for your ancestors, you are communicating with them. So just trust yourself. It's a really big thing to do when it comes to family connections on a spiritual level, because if you don't trust yourself, it's so easy to not trust people in the physical realm already if you're an adoptee, because it's like you don't know what people's intentions are. But when you're holding space for them on a spiritual realm, you do have to trust the information that you're receiving, and that's a really big deal. So just make sure that you're not cynical, especially once you start doing this work. You're just open to the messages, you're open to the healing, you're open to what they need, and just hold space. There's nothing wrong with like holding space and being just, you know, being open. Now, the last tip that we're going to talk about is astrology. Okay, now if you are an adopter, if you have adopted, one of the best things that you can do for your child is get their birth time information, get all of that stuff, where were they born, what time, all of the things, because you're really helping, you're going to help them have the map to their life. Okay, now if you're an adoptee, you want to make sure you have this information. Why? Because astrology, your natal chart, is your map to your life. It will show you certain aspects of what is going on, why things happen the way they did, why you had to go through certain things, why your connection to certain things is important. Like, it just shows you what you need to know. And specifically for those who have been adopted, I need y'all to look at these specific 4 houses. These specific 4 houses, and I'm going to explain why. you're gonna need to look at the second house. The second house specifically because this is the house of what you have, of value, okay? Yes, it deals with money, but it's about value. What do you value? Do you value family? Do you value that connection? Do you value an emotional connection to family? You wanna look at the sign that's there because it will tell you and hint at you how you kind of hold or keep or distance yourself with that connection to what you have, which is we're talking about family. Now the next house that we're going to talk about is obviously the fourth house because it deals with family. It's a house of family, and you want to look at the sign that is there as well. The signs that are in these houses that I'm talking about will show you the energy, that how you relate to that connective family energy and people who you see as family as well. So you want to make sure that you are have an awareness of how you're reacting. Are you behaving from the negative part of this sign in this specific house? Like, are you behaving from the negative? Are you behaving from the positive? Is there trauma that needs to be healed in connection to these areas? Like, you can start like kind of pinpointing and playing around with it. Obviously you want to look at the planets as well and if they fall in any of these houses, but you want to specifically look at these houses as well. Whether or not they are aspected by the planets, you still want to look at them. The next house that you need to pay attention to is the 8th house, and the 8th house is important because this is a planet of death, transformation, magic, the occult. Like, this is the Scorpio house. This is past life. You want to pay attention to this house because the 8th house brings out a lot of past life issues. It also brings up trauma. You want to make sure that you are healing aspects of this trauma, that the sign that it's in the 8th house you are healing through, that you're not using it again in a toxic way. You're not kind of working through the negative aspects of that sign, but you're working through the positive, and you're trying to transform your life and your connections to, again, these other houses that I'm mentioning in a way that is healing, that you can transform your relationships with family, with the dead itself, with your ancestors in a positive way. The next house and the last house that I'm going to mention is the 11th house. And the reason why this is important is because this is the house of like society, friendships, connections, those social connections. And the reason why this becomes a very important house is because sometimes your friends become your family. So you do want to look at what sign is in your 11th house, how you feel about your connections to other people, how you trust other people. Are you behaving within that sign? Are you behaving, are you using that energy of that sign that is in this house in a positive or negative way? Is there healing that needs to be aspected? Or do you trust other people easily? Or do you have, are you like skeptic? Do you have a distance with it? What lessons can the sign within that house teach you to better connect and have a better relationship with society, and even with all of the rules and all of the like traditional value type of things that society has? How can you better, again, this is the house of Aquarius, so you want to make sure that it can be a very futuristic view. Maybe your life is not meant to look like that American dream life. It's supposed to be a little bit different, and that's okay. It's very eclectic, but what energy does that look like through? Because a lot of the time our friends become our family, and a lot of the time for people who have been adopted, it's really the truth. So you want to look at this specific house as well in connection with the 2nd, 4th, 8th houses, and you want to see how you behave, what the energy of those specific signs are. Are there a lot of air energy? Is it a lot of water energy? Are you more on the emotional side? Are you more like grounded? Are you a little more stubborn? Like, what is going on there? And try to use the energies of those houses in a positive way and see how they can transform you, and try to open yourself up and study these areas so then you can actually use the energy of those houses in a positive way to improve your connection to family and to that grounded energy. Okay, so those are the 5 tips for adoptees that I have for you today. I hope that you enjoyed this video. It was very important for me to make this video because we've been talking a lot about ancestor work, so I definitely wanted to share different tips for those who are adopted, or for even parents who are adopting. I know that eventually I am going to be adopting as well. I'm going to also carry, but I'm also going to be adopting as well. That's just one of the conversations me and Bae have had, and it's just really important to me to put these tips out there to help you guys out there, because the spiritual work, it's not just everybody's journey doesn't look the same, and if you're an adoptee, it just feels like you have to do more work, and in a way you kind of do. But everybody's healing journey is different, and you just, at the end of the day, this is to make you stronger, this is to make you more comfortable, this is to make you have more self-love, feel protected, feel grounded, feel safe, which is what's most important. Okay, so don't forget to subscribe. Thank you all to my new subscribers. I'm very happy to have you here, and don't forget to check out the Patreon as well. The monthly community spell poll just went up last night, and I'm excited to see what they're gonna vote on as the spell for the month, and that's gonna be coming very soon, and they're gonna be voting on the weekly community poll next week as well, so it's a lot of fun. Also, really quickly, the chakra healing videos for the month of February are going to come very soon. I'm probably going to post it either tomorrow or Monday, so stay tuned for all that. Okay, so I'll see you guys later. Have a good day.